Senhoras e senhores, bem-vindos à parte 2 do vídeo Reptilianos, a prova? Então vamos continuar a abordagem. Bem, conforme visto no vídeo anterior, iríamos abordar as descendências dos seres reptilianos, os chamados híbridos, mas tido como referência as falhas evidentes, ou seja, anomalias que acompanhamos nos supostos seres humanos se apresentam assim, já podemos ter indícios de que estes sejam híbridos. Por exemplo, eu acredito que as falhas shapeshifter, estas que são capturadas por vídeos, sejam de alguma tecnologia de holograma de quem já são répteis puros, por exemplo, ou tem algo que é muito evidente. Já alguns outros humanos apresentam anomalias pequenas, não muito graves. Por exemplo, línguas, às vezes, olhos, dentes e reptilianos. Então pode ser que estes sejam frutos de cruzamentos de antepassados que foram modificando a genética do DNA até chegar no que são hoje. Então acredito que não há muito que se apresentar, que já foi bem abordado isso. Já fizemos uma explanação bem profunda. Mas eu gostaria de apresentar este repórter e sua língua de cobra, sua língua réptil. Acompanhe.
Agora vamos analisar o que chamam internet afora de prova irrefutável. Este repórter, ao vivo, diz que o mosquito entrou em sua boca. Acompanhe. Mas, na verdade, não entrou mosquito algum. Isso é a sua língua réptil saindo da sua boca. Não sou eu que estou dizendo, são as imagens. Acompanhem a seguir em câmera lenta e chequem por vocês mesmos. Neste momento, onde ele diz ter entrado um mosquito, a gente vê que algo está saindo da boca dele e não entrando, como ele sugere. Ele faz um drama, um teatro, tudo para disfarçar. Ele está mais nervoso com o fato da língua ter aparecido em câmera do que o fato de ser um mosquito em potencial. Este vídeo não é fake. Acompanhe agora a aproximação em câmera lenta. Vejam bem, saindo. Agora a gente pode observar que sai totalmente da boca dele. A gente vê saindo pequeno e depois a língua esticando. O mais curioso é, se entrou na boca dele, como ele sugere, por que ele não cuspiu? Simplesmente esse inseto desapareceu? Não mostra este inseto caindo, por mais que a velocidade dele seja maior do que os frames de captura da câmera. Neste instante, o inseto não cai e nem aparece sendo cuspido. Simplesmente entrou na boca dele e ali ficou. Ou seja, não é inseto, é uma língua.
Temos aqui o mágico ilusionista Kristian Jyot, que ele é conhecido por ter uma completa habilidade mental de concentração e de equilíbrio e manipular certos objetos com o suposto poder da mente. Então eu separei este outro vídeo para a gente analisar. Acompanhe. mas espera aí, ainda não está convencido, você pode usar o seguinte argumento: mas ele poderia ter uma lente de contato nas pálpebras, que poderiam fazer com que os seus olhos mudassem. Assistam isso e tirem suas conclusões. Bom, legal. Primeiro a gente deve analisar o seguinte: este vídeo foi produzido, teve uma produção, então é muito provável sim que possa ter sido empregado ali um efeito para enganar a gente. Assim como a bolinha flutuando pode ser um magnetismo, a bola maior é como se fosse um ímã que age em cima dessa bolinha menor, fazendo ela movimentar igual aqueles discos que a gente gira com a mão, certo? Pois bem, agora, isso seria até uma jogada de marketing para ele. Nesse caso, eu concordo. Porém, um dos maiores fatores que nos levam a crer que existam seres reptilianos é a pupila dilatada. A pupila dilatada é algo incongruente, insólito, ninguém consegue explicar. Para possessões demoníacas, as pessoas usam o argumento de epilepsia, de doenças mentais das mais variadas e recentes. Mas não existe nenhuma doença catalogada onde a sua pupila se dilate na vertical. Eu quero que vocês analisem se tem algum embasamento de dizer que as pupilas dilatadas na vertical é uma doença conhecida. Se for, é uma doença conhecida só por alguns, porque de tantas pessoas que apresentam essa falha, essa anomalia, essa doença, ninguém conhece a doença. Poxa, Michael Jackson e MV Bill têm vitiligo, duas pessoas famosas que eu conheço que têm vitiligo, e eu já conheço a doença. Várias pessoas têm essa anomalia, essa doença nos olhos, e eu não conheço, não foi divulgada essa doença. Mas é claro, como tudo que a gente aborda, como vocês já puderam ver nos outros vídeos, possuem desinformação. Então vamos analisar, eu acho até engraçado. Tem uma rapaziada, principalmente no meio ufológico, tem muito charlatão que se beneficia e chama atenção para si. Recentemente teve um camarada que postou foto de uma múmia com hidrocefalia, dizendo que era alienígena, de Roswell, e já foi massacrado. Então, tem o Jurandir, sei lá, do Projeto Portal, se não me engano, Tebilu. Então, ufólogos estão sendo massacrados, mas tudo que sofre repressão é porque tem uma verdade. Assim, não seria diferente com o caso dos reptilianos. Acompanhe esse camarada falando no Jô Soares.
Já que eu estou falando com o maestro, vamos continuar no mesmo assunto, falando de extraterrestres. Com Chico Penteado, venha pra cá. Os reptilianos falam inglês ou alguma coisa assim? Eles não precisam, eles falam qualquer língua porque eles falam pela mente. Qualquer ET não precisa de tradutor, ele pensa e você entende. Que coisa de uma facilidade maravilhosa. Essa é a melhor parte. E você é reptiliano, não? É uma história engraçada. Eu comecei fazendo vigílias, assim, só olhando o céu, com um pequeno grupo e tal. Comecei a ver uma nave aqui, uma coisinha ali, uma luz ali, uma sonda, tal, não sei o quê. Aquilo foi aprofundando, tive abdução, cheguei a ter 5. 5 o quê? Abduções? Pouco, tem gente que tem bem mais. Como é que são essas... São répteis que estão... Dinossauro bípede. Rabinho, cara de
E como é que
iguana.
segura o volante? Como é que pega o...
Tem mão.
Um mancho. Mas
Tem
uma
mão, mas,
mãozinha
mas bem forte, com aquelas unhonas.
Bom, já achou ridículo pra caramba? Não para por aí. Olha o mesmo camarada nesse programa.
Né, pessoas que já viram naves, tipo, né, tem o Maurício de Souza.
A tiazinha falou, né, que foi massacrada.
Elba, a Elba Ramalho.
A Elba.
Entendeu? Inclusive a história da pedra extraterrestre que ela recebeu e tudo mais.
A Elba?
É. Mas aí tem o Fábio Júnior, né?
Dúvida. Diga, Vera.
O Chico Xavier.
O Chico Xavier.
Chico Xavier.
Sim,
Tá. Você tem filha? Você tem uma filha?
tem.
Ela também tem contato com eles ou não?
Não.
Não tem.
Ela.
E o que ela acha de você, Vera? É ter contato com eles, admitir isso publicamente, ser uma missionária transmitindo esses conhecimentos? O que sua filha acha?
Não, ela não fala nada.
Ela respeita?
Respeito.
Não te critica?
Não.
Não tem vergonha? Porque filho é doido pra ter vergonha da mãe, né?
Não.
Não?
Não.
Nunca pediu pra você não falar sobre isso?
Não.
Que bom, não, Vera?
Nunca falou nada.
Bom, você tem mais fotos aqui?
Tenho. Essa principalmente é a foto original.
Olha isso aqui que tem.
Isso aí, eu tenho que explicar que isso não é...
Ui!
Sim.
Mamãe.
Eles fazem isso.
Faz.
Calma. Como assim eles fazem isso?
Às vezes eles fazem essa brincadeira pra mostrar que...
Você tá brincando.
Que
Tá
aqui.
vendo?
É, fala assim...
Tá
Você tá
vendo?
brincando,
Fala assim,
Chico?
pra mostrar assim, a gente
Faz.
tá assistindo também.
Você tá brincando
Ou não gostou de alguma
comigo?
coisa que a gente falou.
Como não gostou de alguma coisa que a gente falou?
Ou de repente, eles só
vendo?
quiseram dar um beijinho. Falar assim, a gente esteve aqui, estamos assistindo.
Tá vendo?
Porque eles estão assistindo. Eles estão nas bases, eles estão na
Sabe?
órbita.
Tá vendo como que
E
é
eles
as
estão
coisas?
vendo, falando assim, ela tá falando besteira, vai falar, tem que falar direitinho.
Querido Chico Penteado, meu amigo, você está prestando um desserviço à humanidade, à população, às pessoas que te assistem. Eu não sei por que ainda tem pessoas que assistem essas baboseiras que você diz. São pessoas como você, meu amigo, que sujam o nome da ufologia. Por quê? Porque se alimentam da ignorância das pessoas e do amor que elas têm pelo tema. Eu, por exemplo, já vi muitas luzes no céu, onde eu poderia afirmar que eram discos voadores, mas são OVNIs, como o próprio significado da sigla diz, objeto voador não identificado, ou seja, não identifiquei. Se eu disser o mesmo para um espírita, ele dirá que são espíritos. Se eu disser o mesmo para ufólogos, eles dirão que são UFOs. Se eu disser o mesmo para um físico, ele dirá simplesmente que é um fenômeno da natureza. Então, assim, eu acho que é muito imprudente da sua parte, muito precipitado, afirmar coisas. Tudo que você diz é totalmente programado, é um roteiro ensaiado de muitas experiências relatadas de outras pessoas, de outros casos. Você tem uma visão hollywoodiana das coisas. Então para de querer fama para si falando mentira, que isso que você fala é tudo mentira, é uma besteira. São pessoas como você que surgem o nome da ufologia. Bom, assim como o rapaz mostrou o ET Bilu, por favor, né, meu amigo? Vamos ter bom senso. E eu peço mesmo para as pessoas que te assistem, por favor, vamos ter bom senso. Quanto mais vocês assistem esse tipo de baboseira, essas pessoas se dão bem, elas ganham, elas lucram com isso, que não é meu caso. Eu não tenho monetização em vídeo, eu não dou palestra falando mentira. Se um dia eu for dar palestra, eu vou estar falando alguma coisa que eu tenho um embasamento científico, não achismos como você faz. Então, eu acho que você é uma pessoa que presta um desserviço, uma desinformação da população. Vamos acompanhar agora um relato de uma pessoa. Esse relato foi extraído dos vídeos de David Icke. Essa pessoa diz que conviveu com seres reptilianos e afirma que eles têm o prazer, têm o sadismo de torturar seres humanos. Acompanhe.
and welcome to the City of London, a city within a city. People think about London as the great metropolis that we all know, but within it is something called the City of London. It goes back many, many hundreds of years, and it's the epicenter of the global financial system, if the truth be told. It's more than that, however. It is the center of a global web of secret societies that control the planet today. And they come from a series of interbreeding bloodlines which you can trace back to the ancient Middle and Near East thousands and thousands of years ago. And the staggering truth is that these interbreeding bloodlines under different names have increasingly controlled planet Earth from that time to this, never more so than today. In the next few hours on this video, you're going to be introduced, if you've not already read the book, my book, The Biggest Secret, to some staggering, stunning, and I'm the first to say, bizarre information. The basis of the video is an interview with a lady called Arizona Wilder, who was brought up and mind-controlled from almost the time that she was born to eventually, as she did, conduct satanic rituals at the highest level of the satanic ritual network, involving some of the most famous people on the planet. But we'll get into that as we go along. It is bizarre, and that's not even the most bizarre aspect of this story, which I'll come to as we progress. But the bizarre just happens to be true. And this video is designed to be a companion to my book, The Biggest Secret, and you'd get more out of the interview with Arizona if you've read that book. But what I'm going to do to start with is just set up a few basic background details that can allow you, if you've not read the book, to follow the story and the revelations that Arizona is going to unfold for us. As I say, this is not just a City of London financial district. It is the center of a global web. It is the spider in the center of the web, as I expose in great detail in The Biggest Secret and a previous book, And the Truth Shall Set You Free. And what the basis of that shows is that all these apparently different companies, banks, insurance companies, political parties, actually at the top of their pyramids interlock and are controlled by the same few people. About 13 families run the world. Arizona Wilder, the subject of this video, conducted satanic ritual at the highest level, and we'll come to that in detail. You'll see that in the interview. But it's very much part of these bloodlines that have increasingly controlled the planet over the last few thousand years. When you follow them through from the ancient Near and Middle East up into Europe, where they became the European aristocracy and the royal families of Europe, or royal family if the truth be told, because they're just the same bloodlines under different names, over to America and into the modern world, one thing follows again and again: human sacrifice, satanic ritual, blood drinking, and all this stuff. And I've talked to a number of people who have seen these rituals in the City of London, who have been subjected to some of them. And the Mansion House, the centre of government in the City of London, is one of the key places where it goes on around here when work here is finished for the day. And satanic ritual is very much part of the next topic I want to raise and talk about at another location, and that's mind control. A few can only control billions and the direction of their lives if they manipulate the way we think and manipulate the way we feel. Only by doing that can they control us, because there's not enough to do it physically. And so mind control is the foundation of how it's done, and we'll talk about that at the center of global mind control, at the center of the network that generates it. And that's the Tavistock Institute, not far from here, yet again, in London. Well, we're now just a short drive from the City of London, next to this very appropriate poster, Very Bad Things, and I'm on my way to the Tavistock Institute. It is the center of global mind control, and the network that does the research and creates the data and advances the techniques to mind control people in many ways. When you think about mind control, you might think of the Manchurian candidate and some robot with a gun, kill, 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 kill. But mind control is much bigger than that. If you take the definition of mind control to be manipulating the way people think and therefore behave, then the question is not how many people are mind controlled in the world, it's how few are not. Because every time you read a news story which is slanted to get you to see the world, a person or an event in a certain way, and you accept that slant and take it as truth, you're being mind controlled. Every time you see an advertisement and it persuades you to buy something you don't really need, you're being mind controlled. So all these different techniques are used all the time to get us to think and behave the way this few, this clique, this elite want us to. The vision frequencies broadcasting to London. I can't see them, they can't see each other, they're not aware of each other because they're on different frequencies. Only when the frequencies become very close do we have what we call interference on the television or interference on the radio. And it's the same with creation. We live in conscious terms in this three-dimensional world. So this is our reality, this is what we perceive. But there are other dimensions. And the one closest to this is the fourth dimension. And staggering as it may seem, and you really have to read The Biggest Secret to see the immense supporting evidence for this, a reptilian race from this fourth dimension is the source, or one of the key sources, of the manipulation of this world. Back in the ancient world, again documented endlessly in so many parts of the world, in ancient texts and legends and accounts, are the stories of how this extraterrestrial race interbred with humanity, creating hybrid bloodlines. And when you do the genealogical research, you find that it is these human-reptile hybrid bloodlines that actually have occupied the major positions of power through the history of the last few thousand years, and today are in the key positions of power, running the banking system, the business system, the politics, the military, etc. And Arizona Wilder, who had no idea of all this other information coming towards me in researching The Biggest Secret, when I met her, she said and told me about how at various satanic rituals involving the most famous people in the world, she had seen them again and again turn into reptile figures and then come back again during the ritual. Stop it and to change it. I spoke to Arizona Wilder in Los Angeles, and this is what she had to say.
Arizona, can we start at the beginning and can you tell us the story of what's happened in your life from the very start?
Okay, what I can tell you is that before I started looking into my life, back in 1989, I was starting to have flashes of things, and my life was not what it seemed to be, which is why I started looking into it. And what I found out was that I had a lot of missing time, and a whole lot of missing time as to what had occurred in my life. And when I started looking into what had happened in my life, it was the only way that at the time that I knew, was to start going to see a therapist. Within a year, I was talking about memories of being sexually abused by my father, which was part of what was supposed to happen. And I was talking then, starting to talk about mind control issues, and I was talking about ritual abuse issues at the time, and I didn't have the whole thing put together. It's taken me years, all these years, it's taken approximately almost 10 years to put this together, what has happened to me. And in the process, I have lost everything that I ever had in my life, and anything I held dear in my life. I was bred for this role that I fulfill, and it was planned from before my birth, and it was because of the bloodline of my mother's family, which comes down through Ireland, but before that it began in France. It was through the Marquis de Stac, which he came to Ireland and changed the name to Stack, and then I was chosen, and the birth was planned. My parents were forced to move down to this area for the reason that the High Council is down here, which is there are 6 councils of 13 in this country, and the High Council is down here.
We're talking the United States?
The United States, yes. And so from the time that I was a baby, I was being abused and traumatized, and on purpose, for the mind control that they need someone to go through to do whatever they say, to be as just a puppet in that they can control every move. And you don't remember, I didn't remember a lot of things, because I have, as a result of all of this mind control, split off many parts that all hold memories, hold feelings, hold programs, hold information. I've been working very hard to pull all of that up, and it's been a long, slow process for me, because there don't seem to be a lot of people in the field that I only felt was the only way I could go was psychiatric and psychological. They don't seem to know what is really going on, and I believe that a lot of them are afraid of being sued should they suggest something, and so they cannot lead or suggest. And it's been a process of me having to trigger myself to remember, and be around people that can help me with that can't really be touched by the False Memory Syndrome Foundation.
So what happened? You say you were abused as a child as part of this compartmentalizing of your mind. What went on after that, as you got older?
Well, they start with wanting to make you an obedient slave at first, and so they do a lot of sensory deprivation, they do a lot of sensory overload, and they switch between the two, and they do out-and-out torture. They take a small child and they electroshock. In my case, it was electroshock to the brain, and they would take away my chance to sleep. They kept me awake for many hours at night, would not let me sleep. And I was also told things, as this was before the age of 5, I was told things such as, they would make me drink water, and they would say, if you pass urine, you're going to have to drink it. And they would make me drink it. And if you have a bowel movement, you're going to have to eat the feces, which is also what happened to me. And then they would play, there was a programmer that was programming me, a very infamous person in history, who actually has been in this country, and he was known as Dr. Green. who he actually was Dr. Mengele from Joseph Mengele from the concentration camps in Germany, and he was kept, or he stayed a lot at China Lake Naval Weapons Station out here in Southern California, in the desert area. And I would be around this man a lot, and he used to tell me that the scar that he had on the left cheek of his face was actually from, he was into fencing, and that it was from that, but actually the scar on his cheek was from one of his own programming techniques, that he would put a child in a box and with a sword and tell the child to defend the box, even if it meant his own death. Then he'd tell another child to break into the box, and which this child would do, and then the other child would then jump out of the box and shove the sword or the lance straight through the other child. And at one point he got into it where this child actually got him in the face with the sword. And he would wear a huge emerald ring on his left hand on this middle finger, and he would twist this emerald around and for programming, and he was into using long colored ribbons of different colors, and you had to choose a certain ribbon, or you were given a certain ribbon, and that meant that this certain thing was going to happen to you. And it was like picking sticks out, or drawing sticks out of a hand, out of someone's hand. I saw games of Russian roulette played where it was chosen beforehand that a child would die, and the child would put the gun up to his head and pull the trigger, and this child would end up dying. But it was meant to scare all of us, keep us in terror, as there were many other children that were around me that went through the same thing. I have run into people from my childhood that have known me, and I've recognized their names, and even if they change their names and change their hair color, as I have done, they have recognized me, or I have recognized them, and I know their name, they know my name. There isn't any way for this to have happened. It's just beyond coincidence. And when you get older, I mean, they start taking, this programmer in particular, Mengele, would take me to rituals. I went to rituals with him all over this country, and in Britain, and in France, and it was known by intelligence agencies in this country that this man was here. They brought him here.
Is that Project Paperclip you're talking about?
Yeah. Through the OSS. And my family, or my so-called family, are all DID. They have not. They are very well programmed, and they have not sought help. They have not gone in and tried to figure out what's happened. They believe they've had this certain kind of life that they've had, and as far as they are concerned, I am crazy. And they have much different memories of what I have, and I was always told certain things by my parents that my sisters were never told. And biologically, I have to add at this point that my mother is my mother. I am not biologically related to my father. And this has to do with the bloodlines, and his was considered impure. And this is all about purity of the bloodline. And that is why I am involved in this. There are people that are involved in this that it is not so much because of bloodline, but they have the ability to dissociate and be used as slaves by these people.
You say that you come from a certain bloodline, and there is this obsession with bloodlines that this Brotherhood Illuminati have. Why is that?
Because what first started coming out was about the Aryans, and the purity of the blood. And what it's all about is that the blood and the menstrual blood contains something that is important for the propagation of this race that is controlling things on this planet. And these people that are in the organization that the Council of 13 is under and they have something called the Grand Druid Council or the Octagon, they're called the Illuminati. And the Illuminati are actually run by these 13 bloodlines, which are all of the royal families in Europe and in England. And they need the blood because they are, in fact, not human. They take human shape. They are reptilians. And they need the blood. The blood helps them maintain their reptilian shape, and it helps them maintain their sanity, and it helps them to live in this world because they are not from this world.
Does that relate to what the Nazis call vril power and what the Hindus call the serpent power in the blood?
Yes, the blood has something. It has something in it. It has secretions from the pituitary gland and from the pineal gland, and it has a very strong drug in it that they also, I mean, this is the one that from going crazy, and it's like heroin or like endorphins, and it's much stronger. But what they need is, for it to be secreted in the blood, is they need terrorization of their victims before they are killed for their blood, or if a young woman is beginning to menstruate, they need the menstrual blood, and they have to terrorize them to get this to come out in the blood and be secreted in the blood.
Is this the what other people have told me about, that at the point of great terror, like the point of sacrifice, there's an adrenaline that enters the bloodstream? Is this what they're looking for?
Yes, that and this other element comes and secretes out through the blood. This all comes out through the blood at that time, and it's at that point they are actually staring into the eyes of the head of at some of these rituals, or at a reptilian. They are staring into the eyes of this person, and they're held. It's a hypnotic gaze these reptilians have, and it holds the victim in an absolute trance, in a trance of terror, and then they are killed at that moment as they are staring into their eyes. And not only do they can't hold their shape when this happens. The human shape they cannot hold. They go back into reptilian shape as this is happening, because it's like an animalistic type of excitement of the kill. And they oftentimes they will just rip into the victim and eviscerate them and start eating the flesh of this person too, and the fat from the intestinal area is highly valued, as they use it on their skin. And they will drink, and they drink the blood, and the blood is highly sought after, and it goes according also to rank within these creatures, as to who gets what when. And their sacrifices have increased in the last, it started increasing in the early 80s. The amount that they were doing is increased, and they use a lot of druidic holidays to do this, but they have other days too. They've mixed all of these satanic and what are called satanic holidays and druidic holidays, and in order to have these rituals, which ritual seems to be important to them, but they also use it in order to drink this blood, but they seem to need more.
Have you any idea why it's increased since the 80s?
So there are changes going on in the earth. It seems they're not able to hold their shape like they once were able to, and people see them shapeshift more and more, and they need the blood to try and maintain it, to try and maintain their human form. I believe there's a time coming that because of what I've been told, when they are not going to bother having to hold that human shape as they had to before, and they want that time to come. It's almost upon us.
So when you're talking about the fact that the veil is lifting on these reptilians so that people can see them far more easily, far more often, does this relate in any way to the fact that there is this desire to bring in this rigid structure, including microchipping and many other things, across the year 2000, which has become known as the New World Order? Is that coming in because it is known that the people are going to see what the game is, and there has to be control of the people at that time?
Yes, it's very connected. I started talking about the New World Order back in 1990, and I was very psychologically and physically affected so much by what was coming out. I wasn't watching television. I was not aware that certain individuals in this country, George Bush, were talking about the New World Order. I was talking about it because that is what was coming out, and knowing that the first time that inside of myself that I'd heard it was in conjunction with the Nazis, and that came from Mengele. And I started realizing that there was something going on, and then it scared me, and I didn't really look into it for years, but I was being harassed constantly. I was being told. At one point, I had someone telling me that I was being, and who was ex-Army intelligence, ex-CIA, telling me that I was being monitored by the National Security Agency, and I didn't have the whole story then, so I did not totally understand why this was happening, but yet I was being followed by cars or vans that said G12, G14, and in this last year, which has really been very hard, I've been followed by G41 vans, and I had to find out what those were, and that is naval intelligence. But this whole thing is going towards around the year 2000, and when they are going to establish themselves openly as a New World Order, and it's headed toward that. And that's what everything is being prepared to, or prepared for. And I have actually got, I've got a sleeping program right now to return, because I've left, but to return for that time, and it's called End Times Programming, or Janus Programming.
And Janus relates back to Nimrod of Babylon.
Yeah, there is a group that used to be in contact with me all the time, and they stopped trying simply because I didn't obey them. They would be in contact with me all the time. They're called Janus, which is also the two-headed Roman god of change, and their headquarters is in Brussels, Belgium, in the NATO building. And they are a group of psychiatrists and doctors who are into mind control.
What's the connection then between you having psychic abilities, those being recognized from the start, and you being brought through to conduct their major rituals?
Well, it's kind of twofold. First of all, they needed the psychic abilities because they control, or attempt to control, events, because I would have the ability to foretell what was going to happen, and they needed the information to just try to control it to an outcome that was good for them. The second thing is that during the rituals, you had to have psychic ability. You have to be very powerful in that way to call out the old ones that are also from another dimension. They actually they materialize from out of another dimension and are present at rituals, and they are so powerful, and their presence is there's such an evilness about them, and they want out of this other dimension, and they can't. They have to be called out by someone who has that power, and the reptilians don't have this power. That's very important, that they don't have this power to call out these old ones that have to do with them. And
what is it that humans have that the reptilians don't have, that means they don't have the power to connect interdimensionally, and some humans do?
We have the ability to foresee, to be able to become vibrationally higher, and see into those levels, go into those levels, and in fact, agencies use this. They call it remote viewing. Humans have the ability to go into the past, to go into the future, to go to other places, to astrally leave their body, astrally, and to see things that we've always had this ability, and it's like having the third eye, which they don't have. They don't have this ability. So during a ritual, these old ones are called out, and they are what Christianity would have called the demons.
Why do the reptilians want to manifest these quote demons at the rituals?
It brings power to the rituals. It brings power to them. They are told things by these entities, and they are encouraged to go on with what they're doing, and knowledge is imparted to them through these entities. But it takes a person with the ability to bring them out and make them answer, because they don't want to cooperate. They have to cooperate when the right person has control over them.
And that's to do with that person's energy and ability to use
right.
energy.
Yes.
You talked about the Aryan race coming from Mars. One expression of it seems to be very clearly what we call the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians had two deities, St. George, which became a British deity, who defeated the dragon, which seems incredibly symbolic, and also St. Michael, who, according to the legend, banished Satan, or this negative force, into the abyss. Is this symbolism of the abyss anything to do with the fact that these reptilian demons of another dimension are somehow locked in a time-space prison, and they can't get out, and they can only get out when they're brought out in that way?
Yes, they want out of that dimension. They have been thrown into that dimension, and they can't leave that dimension. And that's actually what the abyss is about, is being in a different dimension. It's like something to do with the fourth dimension. And before I even knew, for example, what I was saying, or I realized what I was saying, I would be saying things to my therapist and other survivors that the fourth dimension was a dimension to stay away from. Not at that time understanding the whole thing.
Why do these rituals take place at certain key times of the year, and so often are related to the phases of the moon?
Because the moon has an influence on this planet, and also the sun. These also take place during different things that go on with the sun, but the moon it's kind of a really very cyclical thing with the moon. And it takes place on full moons, new moons. It has to do with the current religion, or what they're using, the Druid religion that they've taken and used. They still hold on to the Egyptology type of religion. They hold on to the Druidism, though, and they're currently calling themselves Druidic or Druid. And Druidism is tied in with the cycles of the moon, on which it has to do with planting, sowing, and harvesting, and there are so many days that they can use from this to their own purpose and their own end, that they bring it about. There's a lot of ritualization with Druidism, and they love ritualization.
So take us through one of these rituals that you conducted at the highest level of this global brotherhood. What would happen?
There were people that were bred from birth. They were bred to be ritual sacrifices. I have a problem with what they is said a lot today, especially by the. I have a problem with what they is said a lot today, especially by the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, that how could all of these people disappear, or how could all these babies be born? I worked with a nurse midwife. We did home births, and it's very easy not to register a child when it's born. And then they have these children that they're kidnapping and bringing in from other countries, and no one misses them because these are third world countries. And the children they have the most energy, the purest energy, they're the highest form of sacrifice. And they will terrorize these children and mind control these children. And in rituals, by the time they're brought into rituals, they may be drugged, or they may not be drugged, or they may be in an altered state because of the mind control. And they are used as actual blood sacrifices during these rituals because of again, reptilians needing their blood, and they will take various organs from the sacrifices, depending on what date the ritual may, what the ritual may be associated with on that date. But they will also slit the throat from the left ear to the right ear, and the blood will be gathered in a goblet, and it will be dispersed among the reptilians, and dispersed among, also after that, among people that have been participating in these rituals and seem to have it, even though they seem to be dissociated, mostly these people seem to be cognizant of what.
Bem, este vídeo agora é o famoso documentário de entrevistas do David Icke para o Credo Mutwa, um dos únicos, se eu não me engano, o segundo ou terceiro xamã africano ainda vivo, que faz revelações surpreendentes. Mas eu devo alertar vocês, espectadores, que este pode se enquadrar também, infelizmente, na desinformação. Por quê? Este xamã, eu já estou dando um spoiler aqui para vocês já estarem preparados. É interessantíssimo algumas declarações, mas outras são meio hollywoodianas, igual muitas pessoas fazem para ele. Porque assim, um xamã que é isolado de toda a civilização dos states de televisão e etc., cujo único embasamento que ele tem, porque ele pode ter respaldo, são as escrituras da cultura, da terra religiosa. Se há algum documento histórico que ele tem em poder dele, ele pode afirmar isso, é uma coisa. Agora, se o camarada já teve acesso a filmes hollywoodianos, ele não é muito seguro, ele não é muito confiável para dar informações, porque ele já teve a mente afetada por culturas de fora. Então, vamos se atentar a isso. Mas assistam, que em si o documentário é muito bom. Com vocês, a Agenda Reptiliana.
Hello and welcome to Africa, this enormous and astonishing continent. South Africa, to be more precise, just a short drive outside Johannesburg. And I'm here to talk to a remarkable man, Credo Mutwa. When I first came to South Africa about 18 months ago, within 2 or 3 days I was introduced to Credo Mutwa. I'd never heard of him at the time, but from the moment I met him, I didn't stop listening and he didn't stop talking for at least 5 hours. And within the first few minutes I realized I wasn't just in the presence here of a man of great knowledge, and he's certainly that. I was in the presence of a genius, a unique human being. And Credo Mutwa is without doubt the most incredible man it has been my honor to meet. Credo is what some people around the world call a shaman, and some deeply, deeply ignorant people call a witch doctor. And to give him his official title, he's a Sanusi in the Zulu nation. Sanusi is the carrier, the keeper of the ancient knowledge of so much, including the ancient knowledge of history of Africa, where all this came from, where the people came from, what the truth of history is, instead of the largely nonsensical version of history that we get through the universities and the schools from very, very well-educated professors who know. There are only 2 Sanusis left in South Africa. Credo is one. And that's terrifying, because it means the true version of the history of this continent is dying. It's being lost to this official nonsense that we're told is history, but is absolute garbage. History has been rewritten, and the people who can put that history together again are going out of this world. as they age and are not replaced. But you know, knowledge is a very dangerous thing when you're trying to hold people down into a mind prison, you're trying to manipulate them, you're trying to control them. And so people like Credo Mutwa, who have the knowledge to rewrite history and therefore rewrite the present, they are very dangerous people to those that wish to control and suppress. This man has had endless threats to his life, endless attempts on his life, right up to the last few days. And he has upset the hierarchy of his own people as much as he's upset those others in other cultures and other races that wish also to suppress the truth for reasons of preserving their own religious domination or keeping people in ignorance. The ancient accounts say were the crossbreeds between humanity and these reptilian gods. In other words, a reptilian extraterrestrial race has been controlling planet Earth for thousands of years to this day and putting its genetic compatible bloodlines into the positions of power as presidents, prime ministers, banking leaders, business leaders, etc. And if Africa and the world is ever going to be free, and we are, then they have to listen to this man. And they have to listen now.
When the white man started destroying our religion, when he started demonizing our gods, when he started ridiculing what we believed in and actually using educated Africans to destroy that ancient African religion, in many parts of Africa, say, our ancient religion went underground. And there were, call them secret societies, all over South Africa and Central Africa and East Africa and West Africa, where this knowledge was stored and kept by aging guardians, many of whom did not know that in other parts of the land there were other guardians who were doing exactly as they were doing. At one time, let me tell you another thing. Again in Barotse land, on the border between Angola and North Rhodesia, as it was called, I was brought into a hut, and in the hut was a young woman. She was as black as ebony, and her hair was like a huge black cloud on her head. Her teeth had been sharpened in the Barotse fashion until they looked like those of a reptile. And Mutwa was very puzzled. What's this lady doing here? I'm supposed to spend several nights in this hut, so what is she? What is she doing here? Now, Credo Mutwa, being a frightened Zulu, afraid of women but not afraid of wild animals, decided to sleep with his back to the wall, giving the lady a nice clean bed. And on the following day, Credo Mutwa was fined 15 pounds by the local chief because I had refused a sacred gift. I had been supposed to do something very amazing to this lady to show that I was one of the people. I'm going to talk, sir. I'm going to talk and I'm going to reveal and damn the consequences. I am not a brave man, but it's high time somebody stood up and exposed the conspiracy around Africa and her people.
My own researchers around the world has certainly focused in on the fact that there is a force, not of this world, shall we say, that is the common theme what is your experience and your knowledge of an extraterrestrial involvement in the history of Africa?
One of the most secret stories that was revealed to me, sir, is about these beings. This story was revealed to me first in Barotsident, then in the country today called Rwanda, once known as Rwanda Urundi. Then I learned about this story at that time on the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro. This is the story, a story you find throughout Africa. There was once a time when the blue sky was invisible, when the whole world was covered with mist, when you could not see the sun as it is now, you only saw it as a splash of white light moving slowly across the sky. At that time, there was an eternal drizzle every day of the year. At that time, people could not see the stars. People only saw the trees growing, trees which were very, very big. There was no desert at that time, only jungle everywhere where you were. At that time, sir, people were what we call in Zulu, ngubili. A human being was both male and female in one body. And out of the sky, one day, came terrible objects. They were like gigantic bows made of huge gleaming gold. They were shaped like bows without strings, and they were bigger than the biggest mountains. They came out of the sky bringing great noise, black smoke, and fire with them. And out of those huge objects came them. At that time, sir, human beings could not speak. We had no gift of language at that time. And people had, however, great mental power. A man would go into the bush and, using the power of his mind, actually call out an animal which he wanted to hunt and kill for his children. And the animal would appear and kneel down before the man, and the man would kill the animal and take it home. But when the Chitawuli arrived in Africa, they told our people that they were gods, and that they were going to give us human beings great gifts on one condition: we had to worship them and accept them as our creators. Some told our people that they were our elder brothers and that this earth had produced them generations ago. And they said they had come back to the green womb of their mother, and that they were going to make us into gods. What they did, they created a very strange pair of caves in the land. They dug 2 caves. In one cave was a green light, in another cave was a red light. And they drove human beings into these caves. And each human being had to choose which cave the human being wanted to go into. And those who went into the green cave came out as women. And those who went into the red cave came out as men. And then the talkers, the Chitauri, told our people that now they were perfect. But the moment the first men saw the first women, a terrible row erupted. The women hated the men because they looked between their legs and they saw what they thought were snakes dangling between the legs of the men. And the men hated the women because they looked on their chests and they saw these big things. What they were, they did not know. And then the Chitauri laughed. It was to them a very, very big joke. And then the Chitauri said, if you serve us, you wretched little human beings, we are going to make you into gods. And the human beings agreed to serve the Chitauri. And the Chitauri gave human beings a second gift, the gift of language. People started talking with their tongues where they had talked with their minds before. And there was a big rubbish starting again, because this man did not know the language of that man. And when this man greeted that man, this man thought that he was being insulted, and so a lot of murder and culpable homicide started taking place all over the world. When our people were given language, they found to their horror that they had lost much of their mental powers. They had paid a terrible price. But the Chitauri were now the masters of human beings.
And we're looking, from my research and staggeringly hearing you talk, you're saying exactly the same as I've come across. It's incredible confirmation that a reptilian race from another world has been behind the manipulation of humanity for a very, very long time. Now, what do these Chitahuli actually look like, the reptiles?
I'm not a good artist, sir.
You're better than me, that's for sure.
But this is how we believe the Chitauri look like. They were created in this. You see, sir, you white people say that there are alien beings on this earth. No, you are wrong. The earth in which we live has produced 24 different races during its long existence. Please, this is how a Chitauri looks like. It stands about 11 feet high. It is a very slender being which seems not to have a bone structure. Its fingers have no joints. They are more as if the bones in here were flexible. Some of the Chitauri have got 3 claws with a thumb. Some have got 6 claws with a thumb. And some of the Chitauris have got horns on their heads. And what surprises me is this. Some film producers, like the producers who make the film Star Wars, George Lucas, often show creatures in their films which actually exist. which even the most uneducated of Africans who knows this Chitauli can identify. For example, in the new Star Wars film, what is it called? Star Wars or something like that. There is a creature who amazes me called Darth Maul. Darth Maul is a red and black being with a ring of small horns right round his head. That is exactly what the Chitauli look like. Some have got ordinary heads without any horns on their heads. These are the lesser Chitauli. But the royal Chitauli have got a ring of sharp horns all around their heads. And the very high Chitauli, like their king, Mubaba Samahongo, they have got very long horns which grow this way. Not that way like a bull, but this way like certain antelopes. Now, I just wonder where these film producers get their information from. And in one strange films which my student called me to come and watch, the thing called Stargate 2. And in that films there was a creature, a very slimy cream-colored creature with heavy wrinkles on its face. It was a spitting likeness of Mubaba Samahongo, the terrible emperor of the Chitauli.
Bem, esta foi a parte 2 do vídeo dos reptilianos. Espero que tenham gostado. Se gostaram, se inscrevam no canal. Se já são inscritos, compartilhem, dê like. E se não quiserem fazer, tanto faz. Muito obrigado.